is a beautiful and wonderful thing. See, because for so many of us, once again, we fall into this trap. We fall into this trap of thinking that, we used to be God's workmanship. God created us. God made something beautiful out of us. But if you recall out of Ephesians 2:10, it doesn't say that we were his workmanship. It says that we are his workmanship. We are his workmanship, that he is still working on us even today, even in this moment here. And whenever I started reading this, I started to think about the verse in Isaiah where it talks about that God is a potter and we are the clay. You remember that verse, I bet. And this isn't actually real clay. It's just something that I got that made it look like it. But if you've ever seen somebody that does that so beautifully, they start to mold and they start to shape this clay here. And let's be honest here. If we're clay, before clay is formed, it's not very good for anything, is it? Like, nobody's going to put this on their mantle, right? If you see it in a field, you're probably like, don't step in it, right? Like, that's all it's good for right here. Like, there's nothing in and of itself. Clay by itself is not beneficial. It does nothing. It's only when it's used in the right hands. It's only when it's put in the right hands. But thankfully, we have a God that says, you know what? I'm going to mold this. I'm going to make them. And I'm going to take something, this lump of clay, this lump of dirt, and make it into something beautiful. And that's our story. For every single one of us, that God has taken something that looks like this, taken a wretch that the song was talking about. It's talking about me. And it still make it something beautiful. And so if you've never put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ, I invite you to say, Lord, I believe in you. I want to be made new. But let's be honest here. For most of us that are Christian, we know God has done something miraculous. We know that we're not the same as we used to be, that God has made something out of clay into something beautiful. But let's be honest, sometimes our life doesn't feel that beautiful, does it? Sometimes there's sin that starts to break away pieces. Maybe it's not even our sin. Maybe it's sin that's been done to you that starts to break away certain pieces. And all of a sudden you say, I know God has made something beautiful. God has made something so beautiful for me. But in reality, it doesn't feel that beautiful anymore, right? Sometimes it feels like life is just covering this up. Life has left me. Well, I don't feel like God's masterpieces anymore. Sometimes life leaves us broken. And we say, is this really God's masterpiece? Is this, I know I used to be God's masterpieces. I'm going to try to put the pieces together the best I can, but they keep falling apart. And this, my life is broken because of this addiction. My life is broken because of this sin. My life is broken because of this relationship. There's another line of broken relationship. My life is completely broken. And we say, I know God made something beautiful, but this life has broken me. You know, in America, we value beauty. We value young people that are beautiful. We don't value wrinkles very much. We don't value broken pieces very much. But other cultures kind of have different value systems, even ones that aren't Christian. And I think it's a little bit better than ours. I read a story about in Japan. They often, whenever there's a broken piece of pottery, where it's fallen down, they don't ever break it intentionally, but simply life just happens and it starts to break. It starts to fall apart here, and there's broken pieces. I started to read that there's professionals in Japan, these old men in Japan, that they go and they start to take all of these broken pieces and they start to put them back together in their exact perfect spots. We know that if you just try to put them back together, you can't actually put it together. You have to have glue. You have to have something. And it's time consuming. And so they start to put it back together. But what I read was so fascinating to me. Because the glue that they use, they actually melt down gold itself. And they start to take this gold and they start to put it on there. And so it starts to be something beautiful. And the finished product is worth immense more value than the piece ever was whole. And I'm here to tell somebody today that for some of you, your life feels broken, your life feels in pieces, but God is saying, no, I'm going to put those pieces back together, and it's going to be better than it ever was before. That those scars that you had are making into something beautiful that you can't even comprehend. Because we are his workmanship, and he's not done with you yet.